Hello and welcome to Talking Europe. The North Pole, home to polar bears and Arctic foxes, the tip of Earth, it bobs in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, a resource-rich region, currently beyond the territorial claims of any particular nation, but that could be about to change. The UN is due to rule on whether Russia's claim for control of an extra 1.2 million square kilometres of Arctic seabed is justified. As waters warm and ice melts, access to the region's reserves is getting easier. Geological surveys suggest that the Arctic holds 30% of the world's remaining gas and 18% of the remaining untapped oil. So, who should get control? And what is Europe's role, or rather the European Union's? Well, with me in studio, I have MEP for Denmark, Ms. Margrethe Auken. Now, you're from one of the 3 EU countries that actually has territory in the Arctic. Opposite you, I have MEP Tatjana Ždanoka. You're from Latvia, but you're also the chairperson of a Latvian-Russian union, so hopefully you'll give us some insight into the Russian view as well of all things Arctic. And with us also we have the European Parliament's rapporteur, you've worked as that, Mr. Galler, for the Arctic strategy. You're an MEP from Germany, Mr. Michael Galler. Thanks for being with us. Let me start perhaps with this question, because we're expecting a decision on it soon. Moscow claims underwater territory stretches further north than previously thought. Mr. Galler, do you think that could be the case?
Well, I think there are certain principles that are established with regard to demarcation of borders, both on the sea and on the seabed. And I would leave it to such internationally agreed standards, and then the experts who should find out what is right, what is wrong, and that would scale down perhaps some political posturing.
Ms. Auken, Denmark made a similar claim on this exact piece of land a while ago, so it's definitely not Danish. Could it be Canadian?
Well, I couldn't just say that. I think I will follow what Michael just said, that all of us have to be happy. We have international laws, we have the law of sea, we have other international...
And it's quite a concrete claim.
Yeah, and I think we should really hope for that we could have a legal-based definition, because if the political fight will take, Denmark, even with Greenland, we are not a superpower.
Good to note. Give us an idea, Mr. Ždanoka, how important do you think this particular region of the Arctic is?
Yeah.
I believe...
But just to continue the previous theme, so this Lomonosov Ridge is just going from crossing North Pole and going to Canada from Russia. So it's just to scientists to decide where is the beginning and where is the end, or here in this direction or in this direction. So it's not a struggle for politicians. Yeah, and experts say it will take decades to decide.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I have read, at least I have discovered this. So Russia has submitted its claim first, because it was first member of this council, then Denmark, so it's
and
now
Norway,
up to...
then Canada, I think everybody is claiming it.
Yeah, now it's up to...
But you say there...
specialists.
It's not a political thing, or at least it perhaps shouldn't be a political fight for that most northerly tip. However, we did see in 2007, we saw Russia, send a mini-submarine to plant its flag on the North Pole. We've seen a number of Russian military setups around the region.
You see, the Arctic region of Russia is 18% of general Russian territory. It is a big piece of land, and the military base was just re-established in one of parts of this land. It's not close to international waters. But I think Russia has demonstrated good possibilities to cooperate. Recently, there was a demarcation of maritime borders with Norway, which was for a long time a big problem, but now it was recently resolved. So I think the things are going well.
So nothing to worry from your point of view, Mr. Galler?
Well, I hope we will not see a military build-up there. There is no necessity, and we are at loggerheads with Russia on various issues, but perhaps the Arctic could serve as to cool down, given the climatic situation there, perhaps to cool down through cooperation there. So there is no need for a military build-up, and that applies to Russia as well.
There was no need for enlargement of NATO to the east. That's my position.
Okay, I could say whatever the security issue is, even if it's not up in the air and discussed, of course, it's very important because you have very short distances if you take this clear place. And after the climate change and the melting of the ice, it's many more things has opened, not only for resources and so on, which I still think that most of these resources are extremely expensive to get to. So,
to exploit. Indeed,
yes.
I believe at the point now we've gone so far north, it needs to be $80, $90 a barrel to make it,
$100
just to break
per
even.
barrel.
And what I'm very happy to learn is that ICANN has given up drilling for oil in the Greenlandic area because it's too expensive, and that would be such a risk to the Arctic environment.
But at the same time, we still have an Italian company. It's the most northernmost oil platform in the world, 80 kilometres off the north of Norway. They're exploiting, they're going down on there.
Well, in real terms, as it was rightly said, the low price then provokes currently that you concentrate on the cheaper areas. And still, I would say, if somebody has a claim or a right to do it, we should insist on the highest possible technical and environmental standards. And that goes together, I think, in case something is exploited there.
And that's perhaps somewhere as well that will bear cooperation, because I believe technically it is so impossible. Ms.
But just saying that there are two other perspectives. The security, that's the oil resources, but there are also other resources. One is the whole commercial trade you have there with this new open line, which is, in my opinion, also a threat to the environment.
These cargo ships that are increasingly
because still
passing.
this area is extremely vulnerable. We saw the big disasters in Canada and what has happened. And it's difficult to
in
make
the Mexican Gulf.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth.
The Gulf is in a different environment. It's
but still,
the same companies.
But
a Gulf oil spill in the Arctic. I mean, that would be an even bigger disaster, right?
Yeah, because you cannot clean
but
it.
We're going towards the same road if we're exploiting there.
Exactly, but that is exploiting. But you also have the trade. You have tourism.
But for this oil, is that not a worry that we're pushing further and further north to try and get these resources out of the Arctic? I mean, as we say, we saw what a disaster it can be offshore.
Yeah, but
this is in the ice.
You also have inshore. I don't. Of course, that's not so much the North Pole discussion, but we are following it very, very closely in Greenland for the rare earths in the south of Greenland, but also in the north. The uranium, which is part of a whole security
Aluminium
discussion.
as well. Recently, there was launched
but I'm
new
just saying uranium.
enterprise.
Well, listen, you mentioned there the resources that are increasingly getting easier to access as we look at these warming waters. Let's take a listen to Norway's president of the Sami, the local people in Norway.
Extractive industry are often competing with our livelihoods. Food producing livelihoods like the reindeer herding industry and fjord fishing. We are competing on the same areas, and that is a challenge to us. And we need, as an indigenous people of the North, we need to have a say. We need to participate in the decision-making process and be able to consent to extraction of mineral oil and gas, because we cannot trust our future in other hands. We have to take care of our own future.
Mr. Auken, I could see you nodding your head as we heard the president of the Sami people, indigenous people to northern Norway, speaking there, wanting to have direct say in things.
Yes.
Is that part of the play today? I mean, do the local on-the-ground groups?
I haven't followed. I used to be in the Nordic Council where the labs have their own transnational organization, have close contact with them. Now I've been following the Greenlandic people, of course, mostly because we are in the same more or less in the same country. And there I can say that what we are facing here is that for the Greenland, Norway, well, the labs in Norway are still very linked to a very strong economy. Mm-hmm. The Greenlandic wants to be more self-reliant economically, which is absolutely understandable. Mm-hmm. And there the mining and the resources is such a big, opportunity. but it's also a dramatic challenge.
Well, let's take a further look now at Norway's northern coast. The effects of climate change are already being felt, both by those local populations, but also increasingly by tourists. Whales are coming closer to the coast, much to visitors' delights, but to the dismay of scientists. Our reporters Isabelle, Romero and Jean-Christophe Felt send us this.
The fjords of Kvauløya in northern Norway, the laboratory of Carl Øystein Gjellang and his colleagues. Today, these scientists are heading out to observe humpback whales and orcas. For the past 3 years, these ocean giants have come closer and closer to shore and are swimming further north than ever before. They're changing course in order to follow their prey, the herring, which due to global warming has moved to colder, more comfortable waters.
It's hundreds of thousands of tons of herring coming in. This has a large impact on the ecosystem in the fjord. There used to be 2 salmon sea farms here, and one of them had to move because when there was so much herring coming into the fjord, this used so much oxygen that the levels were depleted to such an extent that the salmon could not survive there, so the salmon started dying in the fish farms.
Visible above water for seconds at a time, the scientists tag the whales and use sound waves to track their movements for a few hours.
So this is the tool that we use to mark the whales.
It's also a chance to measure the impact of pollution on the mammals.
So we are collecting little samples of the skin and also the blubber tissue of the whales. And one of the things that we're doing is doing ecotoxicology studies. So we try to see what the levels of different pollutants are in the whales. So the thing is that we're using, in a way, the whales because people are very interested in whales and it's very easy to get people excited about whales. But we are trying to use that as a way for people to understand the local ecosystem on a larger scale as well.
The increase in the number of whales may have brought more tourists to the region, but if Norway doesn't protect its natural landscape, it could lose in the long run. Dog sledding through the snow, another of its major attractions.
But I feel so happy for this. It's my first time for driving with the dog team.
Des paysages un peu brumeux, mais des paysages magnifiques.
It's a total change of scene, and these little guys are great. It's fantastic.
Norway's natural environment is as unique as it is fragile, something an increasing number of locals are aware of and trying to preserve. The Hurtigruten company has organised cruises along the Norwegian coastline since 1893. It's put in place measures to limit harmful emissions from its boats, including turning towards clean energy.
I think we all in Norway now realize that we have to transition into a less oil-dependent economy. And I think tourism will be a very, very important part of that transition and will play an important part of Norway's future. Tourism, an eco-friendly kind of tourism, is renewable forever.
How to develop their activities without harming the environment. That's the challenge for Norway's tourism industry.
Now, we saw there in December temperatures above 0 degrees in the Arctic. That's only the second time ever recorded as warm. My guess, do you think it's too late to turn back the clock in global warming when it comes to this precious Arctic?
Well, no, I'm the grandmother of 7, 8 children, the 8 is coming. And I have to say, no, it's not too late, but it's for sure too late to avoid all the changes. The question is that if the rest of the world is taken serious, how dramatic it is, because if the temperature is going up, it's not only the ice melting, it's also all the permafrost in the Arctic, which speed up the climate change dramatically. So we are at a tipping point, and we must take this much more. Urgent action is needed.
Yeah, I think situation must not become irreversible. Now it seems to be solvable, and Paris decisions are also on the same way. But in what concerns tourism, not only tourism, but also commercial ships,
71 massive cargo ships passed
will shorten very much the way from even for China, not only for Russia.
You think it could become a major trading route?
To go to Europe. So this will be developed, I guess, much more than even tourism.
That's a worrying question. I mean, you know, we heard in Davos people speaking there at this annual economic summit saying there was something like $1 trillion worth of resources to be taken out of this Arctic region. How much will there be to take climate change into account when you're getting more money?
Well, I would say that, as always, we must combine the diverging interests. And if we have our ships going there and we have EU laws that govern the waste water treatment within ships, or whether we have other rules with regard to the environment, they need to be applied also on their way on the northeast or northwest passage. And I think in Norway and in Iceland, at least, same high standards of environment apply. And I hope that we can also count on Russia in this regard.
Yeah. Just one little point. Nature is not a negotiating partner. And it has to remember that. You know, you cannot say to nature, okay, now we gave you so much. Okay. Now it's your tour. So, and you know, I think the limits are absolute here, and whatever other interest could be in the game.
We also cannot say to indigenous population, of course, that we will frozen your activities.
Your economy,
they
that's
have
a
the
good
right
point.
to development.
Yeah, but you know, not to right to develop on the cost of their own future.
Yeah,
it's a delicate
balance.
balance.
Here is the balance is needed.
A delicate balance, it would appear, and perhaps a food for more thought, but for now we're going to have to wrap it up. That brings us to the end of this edition of Talking Europe. Thanks indeed to my guest and to you at home for having watched. We'll be back with our guest of the week, of course, after the news. See you then.